Hare Krishna. Morning, dear devotees. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm a little bit late this morning, but took me a few extra minutes to get set up. So we will begin by reading from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Volume 1, Chapter 3, and we're going to begin today with text number 24. But before we begin, just a quick summary from our last class. Our last class, of course, we were speaking about the glories of Lord Śiva. And Lord Śiva was responding to Narada Muni's praise. And he was expressing that pastimes of the Lord are most incomprehensible. And in discussing the incomprehensible pastimes of Lord Krishna, it was compared to like the depths of the ocean. And we gave the example, just as one goes deeper and deeper into the ocean, it becomes more and more mysterious. And the deeper one goes into the ocean, the more difficult it is to discover all that's there in the ocean's depths. And we also spoke about how that was a mechanical process, which today the human society is very much intrigued by, going to the depths of the ocean to find the mysteries of the ocean by some mechanical process. And we emphasized the point that for a devotee who is trying to understand the mysteries that are in the depths of Krishna's incomprehensible pastimes, they become accessible to the devotee by dint of his faith in Krishna and his faith in Vaishnavas, which is a superior method to enter into the depths of the ocean of Krishna's pastimes than by following some other mechanical process like the materialists do. We also spoke about Narada appreciating Lord Shiva's ecstatic love that he has for Krishna, and he fell at his feet and grasped his lotus feet. And because Lord Shiva was expressing such feelings of regret for having given boons to these materialistic persons, he was feeling very despondent. And Narada Muni was trying to appease Lord Shiva. Please don't think in this way. And holding his feet, he begged him to understand that Krishna never sees offenses in him. And we discussed the pastime of Banasura, that although Banasura was given the benediction by Lord Shiva and he had 1,000 arms, still Lord Shiva was very pleased by Banasura and accepted him just like a son. And therefore, when Lord Shiva was dancing, not therefore, but because Lord Shiva was in ecstasy when he was dancing in his Tandava Nritya, and Banasura was playing drums with his 1,000 arms, he became so pleased with him. And therefore he was increasing Lord Shiva's ecstasy for his love for Krishna by accompanying him in his dance and playing those drums. Therefore he became very pleased with Banasura, and he held affection for him. And then when Krishna was fighting with Banasura, although he could have killed him, understanding how dear he was to Lord Shiva, he didn't kill him, but he simply cut off all of his arms, leaving only 4 of his arms. And he raised him to the position of becoming an eternal associate of Lord Shiva and Lord Shiva's planet. In this way, we can understand the Lord's relationship with Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is such a great Vaishnava. If someone is dear to Lord Shiva, then Krishna is very merciful to that person. Even if that person has caused uh, pain and suffering to Lord Vishnu and the Vaishnavas. Banasura had that one credit of being Lord Shiva's sincere devotee, and this really impressed Krishna. So that's a short summary of Thursday morning's class. And we will begin with text number 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhavascha Vaishnava Drohi Gagya Dibya Sudushtarai Tapo Bir Bhajamanebhyo Navyalika Varadade. When such enemies of the Vaishnavas as Gargya worshipped you by severe penances, the benedictions you gave them were not without loopholes. Commentary. Because Gargya and others were inimical to the Yadavas and Pandavas, who were all staunch Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva rewarded their worship with imperfect boons. According to Brihad Upanishad, Gargya Balaki was a learned son of the sage Garga, who was too proud of his acquired knowledge. By Lord Shiva's blessing, Gargya obtained a son, but not one who could destroy the Yadu dynasty as Gargya had wanted, only one who could frighten and frustrate the Yadus. Similarly, Jayadratha received the limited boon that he could only once defeat each of the Pandavas except Arjuna. Sudakshana was allowed to destroy any enemy of his choice who was not a proper follower of Brahminical culture, but this power ultimately turned against him. The full stories of these hapless devotees of Lord Shiva are recorded in Sri Harivamsa, Vishnu Purana, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnana Timvarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksha Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangayate Garib Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shanyavari Pastachade Satarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasidi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When I was reading this verse and commentary this morning, just before coming, I was thinking of something that Srila Prabhupada had written in the beginning of Nectar of Devotion. And I quickly looked it up, and I wanted to just summarize it. Prabhupada was explaining why the devotees are interested in places like the battlefield of Kurukshetra, for example. He was saying that devotees know that the battlefield of Kurukshetra has nothing to do with their business. But they also know that because Krishna was present, Krishna doesn't mean just Krishna alone. He is always with his associates and paraphernalia. And he gives an example. He says, for instance, if someone says, give something to eat to the man with the weapons, says the eating process is done by the man and not by the weapons. He said, similarly, in Krishna consciousness, a devotee may be interested in the paraphernalia and locations, such as the battlefield of Kurukshetra. which are associated with Krishna. But he's not concerned simply with any battlefield. He's concerned with Krishna, his speech, his instructions, etc. It is because Krishna is there that the battlefield is so important. So I like this example. When someone says, give something to eat with the man with the weapons, to the man with the weapons, it's the man that one is concerned with, not the weapons. Because the eating process is done by the man. So the same way the devotee's interest in hearing about the places and activities of Kurukshetra are because Krishna was present. So there are many events that are described in this one verse, they may seem to be, they're events like the events coming from Mahabharata. And there are also events that are described in relationship to Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka. And therefore, because Krishna is very much involved in these activities and was drawn to these activities by the presence of Lord Śiva, who is the greatest Vaishnava, therefore our interest in hearing these descriptions is because of Krishna's presence. But not only Krishna's presence in these events, but also because of the way Krishna acted because of the boons which Lord Śiva had given to these various personalities. Lord Śiva, when he gives a boon or a benediction, even to the enemy of Vaishnavas, because of his deeper loyalty to the Lord's devotees, he always ensures that the boon is never truly complete. And the examples that are used here are just the perfect examples which explain this principle. The first example is the example of, it's given of Gargya Balaki. Gargya Balaki, he was very angry towards the Yadus, because members of the Yadu dynasty had heard something about him and they were laughing about him. So because he wanted to destroy the Yadu dynasty because of this anger, because they were laughing about his character, he actually performed very severe austerities to worship Lord Śiva. And he was desiring a son who would bring terror to the Yadus. And for 12 continuous years, he ate powdered iron in an attempt to satisfy Lord Śiva by his austerities. And as a result of those austerities, Lord Śiva gave him a boon, that his wife begot a son whose chest was as hard as the tip of a thunderbolt. And he was thinking, someone who has a chest as hard as a tip of a thunderbolt, certainly he could never be destroyed by any weapons. And that son's name was Kalyavana. We know about this pastime, which is given in Krishna book about Kalyavana. Kalyavana is the one who is ultimately killed by Muchukunda, because Krishna was running away from Kalyavana when he was coming to take part in the battle in Mathura. That's why Krishna, one of his glorifications, is known as Ranchor, is one who leaves the battlefield. And many places Krishna is worshipped as Ranchor because of this pastime of fleeing from the battlefield, because it appears he's running in fear of Kalyavana. But actually, although Kalyavana was chasing him, and he never was able to catch Krishna. But Kalyavana followed Krishna into a cave where there was the personality named Muchukunda, who had been given the benedictions by the demigods that he would not be awakened, he would be able to sleep after fighting on behalf of the demigods for so many celestial years. So he was thinking that, uh, actually, Muchukunda had this benediction also, that anybody who awakened him from his sleep, he would merely burn to ashes by his glance. So when Kalyavana entered the cave, he saw someone lying in the cave. He thought it was Krishna. He said, just see, Krishna is lying here afraid of me. And he kicked him. But it was Muchukunda. And when Muchukunda was awakened from his deep sleep, he had been sleeping for so many years, and he was given that benediction by his glance. He saw who awakened him, and he immediately burned him to ashes. So Lord Shiva had actually given the king, Gargya, he had given him the benediction that he would have a son who would not be able to kill the Yadus, but he would cause them so much fear. So he was thinking, oh, this is wonderful. I will be able to get back to the Yadavas, for they're laughing at me. Not only the Yadus are afraid of me by my attacking them, but even Krishna himself is running in fear from me. Kalyavana was thinking in this way. So he's thinking, yes, such a wonderful benediction. I'm being able to cause fear to the others. But still, there was a loophole. Although he caused fear to the Yadavas, still he was killed by Muchukunda. So that is the first benediction that Lord Shiva had given. Here, there's the benediction to Gargya, who performed these austerities of eating powdered iron for 12 years to have a son who could defeat the Yadus. And similarly, Jayadratha received a limited boon that could only once defeat each of the Pandavas except Arjuna. So Jayadratha had received also this boon from Lord Shiva. And he was, I'm sorry, I'm reading also some from notes that I took, so it's taking me a minute to find these notes, or to read through these notes so that I can summarize them. So he was giving a boon by Lord Shiva when he performed penances to satisfy Lord Shiva. And he asked for the power to conquer the 5 brothers, the Pandavas. And Shiva gave an answer to Jayadratha, and the answer is also given in the Mahabharata. Lord Shiva said, the Pandavas are unconquerable and cannot be killed by you. With the exception of the mighty armed Arjuna, you will be able to hold back the remaining 4 Pandavas in one battle alone. Arjuna is Nara, the chief of the Suras, who performs penance in Badarik Aksham, along with the sage Narayan. So he was telling to Jayadratha, yes, you have this benediction, that with the exception of Arjuna, you'll be able to hold back the Pandavas in one battle. And that battle was Kurukshetra. So Jayadratha, he was taking part in the battle of Kurukshetra. And he was at a particular point in the battle, all the Kauravas were protecting him because he was such a great fighter. And they were able to hold Yudhisthira, Bhima, Nakula, and Sahadev to protect Jayadratha. During that battle, though, however, Arjuna's son Abhimanyu was killed. And Arjuna, he wasn't present at the time. He was in another place fighting in the battle. Of course, there's also a very nice description of how the Kauravas were fighting with Abhimanyu, and he was such a great Maharata because they were able to hold back. The four Pandavas, they entered in to defeat Abhimanyu. And because they defeated him, they cut it off. I think they cut off one of his arms, and they had cut off his legs, and he had one arm left. And the Kauravas were saying to him, "So before we kill you, do you have a request?" And Abhimanyu's response to their question was, "Yes, I have one request. Hand me my sword." This is how the glorious way Abhimanyu died in battle, which shows the determination and heroism of those who fight on behalf of the Lord and his devotees. But Arjuna, he was not present at that time when Abhimanyu was defeated. And when he heard what happened to Abhimanyu, he vowed to kill Jayadratha before sunset the next day, or he would enter into fire himself. So Lord Shiva had given Jayadratha that, yes, you will have a benediction. You will be able to hold back in battle four of the Pandavas. But Arjuna, you will not be able to hold him back, because Nara is the chief of the Suras, and with Lord Narayan is Nara Narayan Rishi in Badarik Ashram. So Jayadratha was satisfied with his boon, but there was a loophole in the boon. And the loophole is that Krishna protects his devotees. If we remember, having heard about this, I'm sure, in one place, about the conversation that took place in the presence of Krishna between Duryodhana and Arjuna, that Duryodhana was given a benediction, and he was allowed to have the first choice. And he wanted Krishna's army because he thought if he has Krishna's army, then certainly he will be able to defeat the Pandavas in battle. But Arjuna, he understood there's no better person to have on the battlefield than Krishna himself. And even though Krishna took a vow to take up no weapons in the battle, for Arjuna, Krishna's presence in of itself was sufficient to have on his side. Of course, there are so many narrations which we could take from this point, how Krishna even became the chariot driver of Arjuna. But because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas, therefore Krishna would not take up any weapons. Still, Krishna was protecting his devotees. So Krishna was protecting Arjuna's vow that I will slay Jayadratha before sunset the next day, or I will enter fire myself. So on the 14th day of the battlefield, the Kaurava army was set up in such a way to protect Jayadratha out of Arjuna's reach. And they knew they had to keep him out of Arjuna's reach until nightfall. So we know this is also described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, because the Kauravas were thinking, yes, we will simply keep Jayadratha protected. And when the sun sets, Arjuna will not be able to do anything to Jayadratha. But Krishna used the Sudarshan chakra to cover the sun, so everyone was thinking that the sun had set. And the Kauravas were rejoicing. Just see, we protected Jayadratha from Arjuna's vow. And not only were the Kauravas celebrating, but the Jayadratha, he came forward and he was gloating. Just see how I wasn't killed. And then all of a sudden, the Sudarshan chakra was removed. And then the sun was there in the sky. And Arjuna, he understood that it was Krishna's arrangement, and he took his arrows and he severed the head of Jayadratha. But there was also a benediction that was given to, I think it was Jayadratha's father. Yeah, his name was Vidakshatra. That was Jayadratha's father. And he had been given a benediction that whoever caused Jayadratha's severed head to fall to the ground would have his own head burst into 100 pieces. And Krishna understood that that Vidakshatra had received this benediction. So he instructed Arjuna to sever the head with successive arrows and carry it through the air in such a way that it would land on Vidakshtra's lap. And when it landed on Vidakshtra's lap, he was sitting there performing some sort of worship and meditation. And when it landed on his lap, he was wondering, what is this? Whose head is on my lap? And he stood up and the head fell to the ground. So this benediction that Vidakshatra had received was actually fulfilled. That whoever caused Jayadratha's head to fall on the ground, his head would burst into so many pieces, 100 pieces. So whatever benedictions Lord Śiva gives, there's a loophole. And the loophole is that yes, the devotee who of Lord Śiva thinks I've received a benediction and I'll get the fulfillment of my desires, but actually, ultimately it causes his destruction. So, another point about Lord Shiva's blessing that was given to Jayadratha. Lord Shiva had given him the blessing that he would only once could defeat each of the Pandavas. He was thinking that's okay. He was thinking, I'll defeat them. And he was thinking that he would defeat them, meaning he would destroy them. But they were defeated because they were held back in battle. Yudhishthira and Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, they were held back in battle and they were defeated on that one day, in that one battle. And he was thinking that would be sufficient to get back at the Yadus. But as we described, Arjuna, who was not present at the time, ultimately slayed him because Krishna was present. So a loophole is something that others can take advantage of, but the worshippers of Lord Shiva didn't understand how the loophole was there for the benefit of others. And there's a whole example also of Sudakshana. It says here, Sudakshana was allowed to destroy any enemy of his choice who was not a proper follower of Brahminical culture. But this power ultimately turned against him. There's another long story about this, but I'll just give a brief summary of it so that we can move on to the next verses. And these stories are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Sudakshana, he also worshipped Lord Shiva. He was the son of the king of Kashi, whose name was Kasiraj. And the king of Kashi was an ally to Pandraka. If you remember who Pandraka was, he was the one who was imitating Krishna, Lord Vishnu, and he had 4 arms. Of course, Krishna came and destroyed Pandraka by severing his head from his body. But Sudakshana was his ally. He was close with Pandraka. And Sudakshana became very determined to destroy that person who had killed his father and worshiped Lord Shiva. And he performed, along with priests, a sacrifice to satisfy Lord Shiva with intense concentration. And Lord Shiva appeared, satisfied by the sacrifice, and gave him a benediction. And the benediction he had given to him, he said, accompanied by Brahmins, serve the Dakshinagni fire, the original priest, following the injunctions of the ritual. And then that fire will fulfill your desire. If it's directed against one who is inimical to Brahmins, I'm trying to summarize it because it's very detailed. But the point is that Sudakshana had performed a sacrifice. And while performing the sacrifice with persons who were not real Brahmins, but he understood that they were worshiping Krishna because Krishna was greedy for honor and was not really their servant. He was thinking that these Brahmins are worshiping Krishna because Krishna was greedy for honor. So he was thinking that actually Krishna is not Brahmanya Dev, he's not the friend of the Brahmins, but he's actually very greedy, and he wants everything from the Brahmins, and therefore he's their enemy. And he was given a benediction that your desire will be fulfilled if it's directed against one who is inimical to Brahmins. So when they performed this sacrifice, there was a big fiery demon that appeared from the sacrifice. And this fiery demon was repelled by Krishna, by his Sudarshan chakra. And what happened is that because the intention of Sudakshana was to have his desire fulfilled by anyone who was against the Brahmins, he was thinking against Lord Krishna. Yes, I know. Because Sudakshana was thinking that by performing this sacrifice, this demon has arisen, and this demon has arisen because it will destroy anybody who is against the Brahmins. And because Krishna actually is against the Brahmins, he was thinking it will destroy Krishna. But Krishna invoked the Sudarshan chakra, which turned this fiery demon against Varanasi and burned Sudakshana and all his priests to ashes. And Prabhupada describes in Krishna book that this fiery demon was so fiery that it destroyed the whole city of Varanasi. He said one may think that modern bombs, atomic bombs, can cause so much destruction, but when they're dropped in a particular place, everything around. But Krishna's Sudarshan chakra, which destroyed the fire and destroyed Varanasi, caused much greater destruction than any atomic bomb could perform. So in this way, Sudakshana was given a benediction to destroy an enemy of his choice, who was not a proper follower of Brahminical culture. But this power ultimately turned against him. He didn't understand that there was a loophole. And the loophole was that the same demon, that fiery demon that appeared from the worship that he had performed with the so-called Brahmins, destroyed him and destroyed all of Varanasi. So the purport ends that the full stories of these hapless devotees of Lord Śiva are recorded in Sri Harivamsa, in the Vishnu Purana, and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Narada is trying to appease Lord Śiva. But any of these persons who are enemies of the Vaishnavas or enemies of Krishna, they worshipped you by their severe penances. Whatever benedictions you gave them, they all had loopholes. So there's no need to feel the way that you do. Krishna always upholds your benedictions in a way that his devotees and you will not be in any way held responsible for them. So this is why Narada Muni is falling at his feet, grabbing his feet and asking him, please, do not feel this way about these benedictions you have given. And he's going to continue and more. These are just the first of a few, but we'll summarize them. So, text 25. Oh, there's one other interesting point, actually, I wanted to raise. Uh, uh, let's try to bring this into connection also to these different pastimes. That Jayadratha, also, as we described, how Jayadratha was ultimately destroyed. And because they were fighting, Krishna and Balaram were fighting with Jayadratha also, they were thinking that we want to, this was in Mathura, they were thinking they wanted to construct a fortress that no human force can penetrate. This is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore they were thinking, let us settle all of our family members there and then kill the barbarian king. And in the commentary, it states that Krishna and Balaram were saying, we will place the Yadus there comfortably. We will have him killed. Him, the enemy of the Yadavas. We will have him killed. And Jayadratha. And they would not kill him so that Shiva's boon would not be contradicted. Oh no, wait a minute. This is not Jayadratha, this is Kalyavana. Kalyavana, yeah. Muchukunda would kill him. And therefore, the Lord's reason for having Muchukunda killed and protecting Lord Shiva's benediction is that the Lord was thinking that Mathura will be too small in the future because the population will increase from our and others' armies, friends, and unlimited children. In other words, Krishna was thinking that Krishna's dynasty, the Yadudas dynasty, will increase more and more because other armies will come to protect the Yadus. And because of the unlimited children that will be born into the Yadu dynasty. And there will be a host of foot soldiers. And the place will be crowded with all these people living there. So Krishna was thinking that we should prepare another place to protect everyone. So he was also thinking that this as a reason for creating Dwarka in the sea. So he wanted to protect all the Yadus, the Yadu dynasty, by creating Dwarka as a place where they could live. But he also had another purpose. And in the other purposes, he was thinking, I have now begun pastimes to rid the world of its burden with the help of the Yadus. Because we know Krishna's earlier pastimes were in Braj, before he went to Mathura and then went to Dwarka. So he was thinking, I have now begun my pastimes with the Yadavas. And because of the people of Raj, who are their relatives, I want to protect them also. It is not proper that the cowherds, whom I take as my relatives, should feel crowded. I'm sorry, I wish I could have given this to you before, but I'll try to speak in short segments. By the population that's constantly increasing in Mathura. And also, I'm worried that the cowherds have fallen into danger. So Krishna was thinking about the gopis, the cowherd boys, the gopas, and the elderly gopis, and Mother Jasoda, and Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna had created Dwarka in the ocean to protect them, because they're related to the Yadus. And if all this fighting takes place in Mathura, they could be endangered by them. Because all these armies, they'll fight to come to fight the Yadus. And they'll be so close by in Mathura. they may also cause danger to the residents of Braj. So he was thinking how to protect the residents of Braj also. He says, also, I worry that the cowherds have fallen into great danger. These are the words of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who's given this commentary to this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 10, Chapter 50, Text 48. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is elaborating why Krishna was meditating on giving protection to the residents of Mathura and to the residents of Braj. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is speaking in Krishna's words. And he's saying, I have now begun my pastimes to rid the world of its burden. Of course, we understand that Krishna, in Bhoma Leela, he leaves Vrindavan, he goes to Mathura, and then he goes to Dwarka. And there's so much that can be described in relationship to how Krishna leaves. He leaves not as Krishna, but he leaves as Yadu Kumar, Vasudev Krishna. He leaves in his expansion because Krishna always stays in Vrindavan. But still his pastimes will go, they'll manifest there in Mathura. He'll kill so many demons. He goes there to kill Chanara, Mushtika. And then, as we know, it's just describing here that Krishna's pastimes will expand in such a way that there'll be more and more armies that will come here. So therefore, I need to protect my very dear devotees in Vrindavan. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in Krishna's words, is saying here also, I have almost allayed their pain of separation from me. Because Krishna is always thinking of pain of the Vrajavasis. He says, I've almost allayed their pain of separation by my sporti of my eternal pastimes. Through Uddhava, who's going there. And one of the reasons is, of course, to relieve the pain of separation by the residents of Braj is to send Uddhava, to carry a message through Uddhava to the residents of Braj, to allay their pain of separation. So therefore Krishna was thinking, in order that the enemies believe that I am indifferent to the people of Braj. In other words, Krishna wanted the enemies to think, okay, I'm indifferent to them, although I'm always thinking about them. Not only did he build the fortress, not only did he build the fortress of Dwarka in the sea, and it was very far from Braj, but it's best I go there to make them believe I'm indifferent to the residents of Braj. So it's best I go to Dwarka, which is far from this place, as part of my human-like pastimes, along with all the yadus, in order to protect the cows. Not only is Krishna thinking of protecting all the residents of Braj, but he's also thinking how to protect the cows, who are also very dear to him. So this is one of the events that took place while they were fighting and protecting Mathura, the battle was taking place on different sides. One side was Jayadratha, another side was Kalyavan. And they were thinking, if we fight on this side, all the residents could be endangered. I will build a place to move them all, and we'll move them all in that place. And I will go there myself to make the enemies think that I'm indifferent to them. I'll stay in Dwarka as part of my human pastimes. Of course, we know that all of this is taking place in Bhoma Leela, and it helps us to understand the point, at least. I thought that by elaborating on this, it would help us to understand the first point I raised in the beginning before speaking about these other events in Battle of Kurukshetra. That what Prabhupada was saying, our business is when we hear about the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it's not the battle itself or all these events, but it's because of Krishna's presence. Similarly, when we hear about these events, it helps us to think about Krishna, not only his instructions and his words, but also his thoughts. And these thoughts that he has for his devotees of Braj, they're always there in his mind. So much so that his creation of Dwarka was because of protecting them and protecting their feelings of separation from him by appearing there in so many different ways to satisfy their innermost desires. Krishna can do all of this simultaneously. This is the depth that we were speaking about previously of Krishna's pastimes. It's how it's such a mystery. And these mysteries of Krishna's personality, Krishna's love, Krishna's thoughts, Krishna's words, they can't be understood by simply externally understanding them. We understand, as we explained in our last class, that it's by faith, by hearing these descriptions and narrations with faith. That is how to enter deeper, deeper into the depths of the ocean, where these mysteries can gradually become revealed. And we gave the example of Krishna telling Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am. Only then can you understand the mysteries about me. Only then can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. I think that's the words he used. They remain mysteries. And the only way to dive deep is not by externally diving through some conveyance, but it's only by hearing with faith, allowing it to enter into the ears and going to the heart, as Lord Kapila explains to his mother Devahuti. When these pastimes of Krishna enter into the ear and go into the heart, then attachment to Krishna increases. One gradually becomes detached from material things, and attachment to Krishna increases. And then real devotional service can begin. So I could go to the next verse, but it's already 9 o'clock, and I didn't really, did I, how many verses did I do? Let me look. Oh, I didn't even go to the next verse yet, did I? I was about to go to the next verse, but then I wanted to speak about why Krishna, while he was fighting with Kalyavana on one side and Jayadratha on another side, or whoever it was, I can't remember. It was, and then how he was protecting, and then I didn't get to the next verse. I'll just read a couple more verses. Text 25. Chitraketo prabhritayo diopyashrita hare nindakaya dyapi svasya tebhyo kupyastatapina. Although Chitraketu and others like him foolishly dared criticize you, you never became angry at them because they were surrendered devotees of plenary portions of Lord Hari. Commentary. It is foolish for anyone to criticize Lord Śiva. When Chitraketu committed this mistake, he was not yet a pure Vaishnava. Otherwise, he would not have exercised his discrimination so wrongly. But Chitraketu, even as a neophyte, had a connection with Lord Shesha, an expansion of Sri Krishna's first expansion, Balaram. So Lord Śiva was not offended by Chitraketu's laughing when Lord Śiva sat with Parvati on his lap in the presence of a group of sages. So we've already talked about Chitraketu Maharaj and his offense that he had committed by criticizing Lord Śiva. And Narad is reminding him that you didn't even become angry at Chitraketu Maharaj because they were surrendered devotees of the plenary portions of the Lord. So Chitraketu had a connection with Lord Shiva, who is an expansion of Balaram, Shesha, excuse me, who is an expansion of Balaram. And therefore Lord Shiva was not offended when Chitraketu laughed at him. So again, Narada is trying to pacify him. You didn't even become angry. Text 26. Krishnasya pritaye tasmach traishtyam apya vivanshata tad bhakta thaiva chaturya vishesh vishesh visheshenartita tvaya. Once, just to please Lord Krishna, you expressed the desire to become even greater than he. But then you very cleverly modified your request, asking him instead to make you his devotee. Commentary. This, in Lord Shiva's opinion, was a particularly egregious offense, based on the desire to be worshipped. He confesses in the Brihad Sahasranama Stotra, Padma Purana, Alabdha Chatmana puja samyag aradito hari maya tasmad apishrashya vanshata vanshataha kritatmana. When I didn't receive the worship I wanted, I served Lord Hari thoroughly in devotional service, but with the egoistic motive of becoming greater, even greater than he. In this way, Lord Shiva, huh? What happened? Okay. In this way, Lord Shiva berates himself, but the truth is that even then he acted only for Krishna's pleasure. He thought that Krishna would be displeased by a direct request that Lord Shiva become his servant. Since Krishna is self-effacing by nature, he does not like exalted persons like Shiva to act subordinate to him. So Lord Shiva instead submitted what seemed to the opposite request. Krishna has declared his servant greater than himself. Madbhakta puja pyadika. More important than worshipping me is worshipping my devotee. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Therefore, Lord Shiva cleverly asked for that greater position. So Lord Shiva, Narada Muni is reminding Lord Shiva that your motivation for becoming even greater than Krishna was to please Krishna. You asked him to make him your devotee. Excuse me, to make you his devotee. It's, I, I, I'm not sure how you translated me. So you asked him very cleverly to modify your request and asking him to make you his devotee. So Lord Shiva was asking Krishna, make me your devotee. But actually, he was asking because Krishna thinks greater worship of himself is worship of his devotee. So Lord Shiva was thinking by making me Krishna's devotee, and Krishna's thinking that a devotee is somebody who should be worshipped because he's greater than me, he was actually asking Krishna to make him greater than himself. Therefore, Krishna's declared him his servant that greater than himself. Mad bhakta puja bhyadika. So he was thinking again very terribly by asking to become such a devotee of Krishna, and Krishna's making this statement, I'm asking to become even greater than Krishna. So he said, but then this quote from the Padma Purana, when I didn't receive the worship I wanted, I served Lord Hari thoroughly in devotional service, but with the egoistic motive of becoming even greater than he. So this is why he was thinking this way. And then to finish the commentary, therefore Lord Shiva cleverly asked for that greater position. Lord Shiva had also once overheard Krishna, while playing dice with his queen Rukmini, declare his devotee even more glorious than himself, in order to allure the dice into acting as his devotees by serving him nicely. Hopefully that doesn't require commentary. But Lord Shiva also heard Krishna speaking in this way. And while he was playing dice with Rukmini, He was declaring that his devotee is more glorious than himself to attract the dice to acting as his devotees by serving him very nicely. And if they serve him nicely, he'll be able to defeat Rukmini. Hare Krishna. Text 27. Ato brahmadi sampratya mukti dana dikaritam bhavate bhagavatyai cha durgayai bhagavan adat. Therefore the Supreme Lord granted you and the goddess Durga the authority to give liberation, the liberation for which Brahma and many others pray. Commentary. Without Lord Vishnu's personal sanction, no one can become free from the cycle of birth and death. Hari vina naiva shriti taranti. This is from the Bhavarta Deepika. Moreover, Lord Vishnu abides by such statements from the Vedic Shastras, which constitute his own laws. But having promised Lord Śiva a position even better than his own, Lord Vishnu deputed to both Lord Śiva and his wife the power to bestow liberation on his behalf. There's a lot to say about this, so I'll leave most of it for our next class. But here, right here in the verse in the commentary, it's bringing up other points which we've previously raised even about Lord Brahma. Brahma, as we described previously, Brahma, after performing his universal duties for such a long time and having to go through all the rigors of universal management, he aspires for liberation. And he spoke of that as one of his characteristics, that even I aspire for liberation. And therefore, I'm not fixed in devotion to Krishna. How can anybody say I received Krishna's mercy? And therefore, Narada Muni is saying that, but the Supreme Lord has granted you and Durga both the authority to give liberation. And this verse explains this in connection to the previous verse. Because Krishna promised Lord Shiva a position even better than his own. Therefore, he entrusted the responsibility of liberation to both Lord Shiva and Parvati. We've already explained that to some degree about Lord Shiva's being able to give liberation to those who actually attain his residence in Shiva Loka. And we've also in part explained it about Parvati. Although possibly you don't remember when we were discussing about Gopakumar's ascension throughout the material universe. Although it's not in this chapter and it's not in this volume, I think we've referred to it before in some of our narrations of Gopakumar. And upon going through the coverings of the universe, he was greeted by Parvati. And Gopakumar was given the opportunity to either go for liberation or to obtain opulences even greater than all the opulences in all the different places that he has already visited. And Parvati was speaking in this way to Gopakumar. And she was saying, even if you want liberation, you have to worship me. Of course, there's a lot more to that simple statement, but I won't go into all of it. But that is what's meant here by Narada Muni when he's saying that the Lord already granted you and Durga the authority to give liberation. Because on his behalf, you now have the power, the boon, to give it, although he is the giver of liberation. Because your position is even greater than him. That's the essence of this commentary. And I think we'll stop here. And we can begin chanting japa together. And I think even myself, I won't be able, I can't remember all the things that we just tried to discuss in this class that came out in these commentaries. So I'm also looking forward to reading the summary. so I can remember all the different points that were brought out here in these different commentaries, and to remember what I spoke about. So I will try to post them soon for no other reason than to fulfill my own need. Just when I began class today, I had to go back to my last posting to review the last class. So in the same way, I will have to go to today's posting or tomorrow's posting, whenever it's posted, so that I can review what I spoke about today. How anybody could think this Srimad Bhagavatam is not present in Brihad Bhagavatamrita is beyond me. How anybody can think that Srimad Bhagavatam is not in Brihad Bhagavatamrita is beyond my comprehension. It's beyond my comprehension. Did you say that? Okay. All right. So let us begin. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna. We will end the class today. But I wanted to say just a couple of words. First, I, I want to just correct myself. I was reading Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary this morning, but it was actually Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary that I was reading from when I was speaking about Krishna's thoughts about protecting the residents of Braj, even Rajatoja. And uh, it was Jiva Goswami's commentary from Laghu Vaishnavitoshani. So that small correction I wanted to make. So we will end here. Thank you very much.